March 30th, 2026, a fan account on X posts a single translated sentence from an Italian analyst's show, and within hours, it's spreading across every Formula One community on the internet. Charles put together his own team, not Ferrari related, to study the data and the new power unit. Ferrari said nothing, Leclerc said nothing. Fred Vasseur, the man who runs one of the most tightly controlled team operations in the paddock, offered zero response, which means one of two things. Either this story is completely wrong, or Ferrari already knows and has chosen silence over denial. What almost nobody covering this has actually worked out is this. This isn't a driver hiring some freelance help on the side. This is a man who has spent years inside Ferrari, carrying the weight of the team's championship hopes, and at the most scrutinized moment of his entire career decided that what the team was giving him wasn't enough. That question, whether Ferrari is quietly tolerating this or privately furious about it, stays open until the very end of this story. Charles Leclerc drove the SF26 for the first time at Fiorano in January 2026, chose his words carefully and said there were no major issues, but that it was far too early to judge. That changed when Barcelona happened, a full, dry day of testing, and that's when his tone shifted noticeably. Very different, he said, super interesting. And then the phrase that kept coming up, the learning curve is quite steep. Leclerc admitted in early February 2026 that Red Bull and Mercedes appeared to have a slight edge in outright pace from his own reading of where the season's pecking order stood, and that the new cars made it genuinely difficult to read where anyone actually was because teams could hide their true performance behind different energy deployment strategies. And that phrase, hide their true performance, is exactly where this story begins to make complete sense. Federico Albano is not a casual voice in this space. He's an Italian motorsport journalist with a track record of publishing detailed telemetry overlays, the kind of data graphics that show exactly where a car gains or bleeds time and why. Back in April 2025, he posted Leclerc's throttle trace from the Bahrain Grand Prix, described the rear grip situation on corner exits as mind-blowing, and the technical F1 community paid very close attention to what he had found, and that's when the credibility of what came next becomes the whole story. During a Formula Passion YouTube debrief of the Japanese Grand Prix on March 29, 2026, Albano made a comment that fan account at Leclerc's letters translated and posted to X the following day. The claim, Charles Leclerc had assembled his own independent team with no official connection to Ferrari to study telemetry data and understand the behavior of the new 2026 power unit. The Reddit discussions that followed, summarizing Albano's comments in more detail, described this team's work as specifically tailored to Leclerc's individual driving style, focused on identifying where the power unit behaves suboptimally, particularly in qualifying trim, with the findings then carried back to Ferrari to inform conversations about ECU programming and energy deployment maps, which meant Leclerc was running his own independent diagnosis of the car and walking into Ferrari debriefs with his own answers already prepared. The problem was, no names, no headcount, no employer details. Albano confirmed the team exists and what it does, but the members themselves remain unidentified in any public reporting. The question that circulated hardest after the story broke was the obvious one. How does anyone outside Ferrari access sensitive telemetry data without the team's knowledge? The result, based on how modern Formula One operates, is that any such arrangement would almost certainly require formal access controls and non-disclosure agreements between the driver's external team and the constructor, which meant that Ferrari, at some level of its organization, almost certainly knew this existed, and the silence from the team begins to read less like surprise and more like a calculated decision not to comment publicly on something they've already discussed internally. But here's the thing, what separates Leclerc's reported situation from every other driver's personal staff arrangement is the territory it operates in. Lewis Hamilton reunited with his physiotherapist and trainer Angela Cullen ahead of his Ferrari move, and she travels with him at races. Max Verstappen works with performance coach Bradley Scanes on physical conditioning and mental preparation. Every top driver in the field maintains personal staff outside the team structure, but that's body and mind. What Albano described for Leclerc is an operation working in territory that normally belongs entirely to the constructor's engineering department. The same technical problems Ferrari is already paying its own analysts to solve. None of this happened in a vacuum, and this is where it gets harder to dismiss as a minor footnote. In 2025, Italian media reported that senior Ferrari figures were unhappy with Leclerc's public comments about the SF25, with certain technical leaders described as not appreciating his attitude in interviews where he voiced doubts about the car's performance. Former drivers went on record advising Leclerc to be more assertive directly with Ferrari's management rather than channeling frustration through the press. Ferrari chairman John Elkann issued a pointed message urging drivers to drive more and talk less after a poor result, and while it wasn't addressed to Leclerc alone, nobody in the paddock missed the implication. That changed the context around everything that followed. A driver who feels his technical feedback doesn't carry full weight inside his own team, doesn't keep voicing that feedback externally and hoping for the best. He builds a system where he arrives in the debrief already holding answers, and the problem becomes much harder to wave off. In the Japanese Grand Prix, the race that immediately preceded this story breaking, Leclerc delivered his second podium of the 2026 season in a car Formula Passion described as being kept afloat by his driving. None of that looked like a man losing ground to the pressure around him. Lewis Hamilton joined Ferrari with 7 world championships and the full weight of the sport's historical narrative sitting behind him. And what nobody expected was how cleanly Leclerc has refused to be overshadowed by that arrival. Fred Vasseur stood publicly after the Chinese Grand Prix in March 2026 and praised both drivers for what he called a professional fight, saying that letting them race was the best way to build up a team, but also acknowledged it could look completely stupid if things went wrong. That qualifier, completely stupid, tells you exactly how carefully Vasseur is watching every variable in this situation, including ones he's choosing not to publicly address. Leclerc building an independent analysis team mid-season in the middle of the most complex regulatory change in 12 years, while his most decorated teammate is settling into the same car, is not a move that reads as passive. It reads as a driver who has decided the gap between his understanding of the car and his teammates' understanding of the car is a competition he is not willing to lose. Ferrari has confirmed nothing. Leclerc has confirmed nothing. The story sits right now on Albano's credibility and the silence of everyone who would know for certain whether it's true. And that silence is itself the story. If Ferrari's leadership sees this as a driver building something outside their control, the friction it creates will surface through the season, in how development resources get allocated, in whose debrief feedback gets acted on first, in every moment where the team has to choose between two drivers' interpretations of what the car needs. None of that mattered before Hamilton arrived. The result is a dynamic where both drivers are motivated in ways that go beyond race wins, where each wants to be the one who understands this new era of Formula One more completely than the other. What's already clear is that Charles Leclerc, in one of the most scrutinized seats in the sport, driving the most technically complex car in recent Formula One history, looked at the information Ferrari was handing him and decided it wasn't enough. And that's when he went and built something that was. Whether Ferrari sees that as a threat or an asset is the question the rest of 2026 is going to answer. With that said, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe for more F1 drama. See you in the next one.